I'm joined now by Brian Caplen, editor of the leading financial affairs publication, The Banker. Brian, thank you for joining us tonight. And there is that question, isn't there? I mean, is this the end of the Co-op Bank?
Well, I think it's very sad because clearly the Co-op did have a great brand, and it was known for ethical banking in an industry that's struggled with reputational issues. So I think it's a great shame. It's probably going to lose its name now, whatever happens.
So it will. So there won't be a Co-op Bank.
There won't be a Co-op Bank, but I don't think it's right to say that ethical banking is completely dead, because I think what's happened is since the financial crisis, other banks have embraced at least the ethical idea. They're aware now of what consumers want from them. And there are a lot of actual ethical funds out there you can invest in now, which invest in green projects or sustainable development projects. So, I think the ideas will continue, but the name is going to go.
And it is interesting, isn't it? Because when there were all those troubles a few years ago, 2013, about all that money that they needed to raise, one of the things that I think particularly the cooperative group was keen to do was to ensure that the name would live on the high street and that the values would stay there as well. So this is a kind of gradual end of that era, is it?
Yeah, I think the big blow really for all of us as consumers and the government was that what the government really wants is to see a more competitive banking sector, and that means having challenger banks, and the Co-op was one of those. Now, we may see it merge with someone like the TSB, and that would create one of the bigger, smaller banks, because what you want is to get some competition for those big four high street banks and make things a bit more competitive out there.
But specifically at the moment, we know that the Co-op has kind of had struggled, let's say, over the course of the last few years. There are some takeovers, there are some sales which are kind of good news stories, and there are some which are bad news stories. Where would you categorise this one? Yeah,
this is a bad news story. It got itself into so much trouble, lost so much money. It had to be rescued by hedge funds. Think about it. A cooperative bank being rescued by American hedge funds. And then, at the very least, you would have hoped it was going to find, a home somewhere, and it wouldn't have to do a forced sale, which is what it's doing now, because it's losing.
So this is basically a forced sale for financial reasons.
That's right, because it was told by the regulator to keep a certain amount of capital there. It's falling below that target, so it's really got to move on and find somebody to give it some financial support.
Have customers been abandoning the bank thus far? There are all these tales, aren't there, that despite problems that banks have, people still stick with their bank that they have their current account at?
That's right. I think, customers are very loyal, especially to a brand like the Co-op. And as you say, there's lots of interviews with people saying, no, I'm still going to stay there. Their accounts will find a home somewhere, but I think they will lose that name. Perhaps it'll be under TSB or Virgin or one of the other challenger banks.
And so that kind of oligopoly that a lot of people have talked about in the British banking system, those big banks dominating the sector, that's living on for some time, is it?
That's living on. And I think one of the sort of lessons for us in the UK is that in the rest of Europe, they have made cooperative banking work. So in France and Germany, you have very strong cooperative banking movements with strong management and well, financially well regulated. Our Co-op bank seemed to lose its way. It became a bit of a political football. It had a lot of people running it who didn't really have banking skills. So that's the lesson for us. We should look to the European model and copied that, not gone with this one.
OK, Brian Caplen, editor of The Banker, thank you very much for joining us.